Mr. President, I rise to speak in favor of the MVP. They call it the Mountain Valley Pipeline. I call it the most valuable pipeline that we have to offer energy to the people of America. And it's been under tow for a long time. I brought some illustrations of what we're going through because my good friend from Virginia, the senator from Virginia who just spoke, and we respectfully disagree on this. This is something we've worked on for an awful long time. And first of all, I want to make sure everybody understands, you cannot get permission to move forward on a pipeline, transmission line, anything that you want in this country unless there's a market for it. You've got to show that there's a person or a group or a market that this product, whether it's electricity on transmission lines or gas in the pipelines or oil, whatever, there has to be a market. It can't go from here to there and then try to build a market. So there has to be a need. There has to be a need. If there's going to be a need in the market, then it's just proceeding. And then it goes through the process. This has started over 8 years ago, going through that process. I don't think there's another permit that's ever been scrutinized or request for a permit than this Mountain Valley Pipeline, or we'll call it the MVP. FERC has approved MVP 3 times, not 1 time, 3 times. Basically, over 8 years of review, started with the Obama administration, went through the Trump administration, now into the Biden administration. And we're as desperate for the fuel today as we are. Let's look at the people that basically where the need is. This pipeline's 42 inch. It takes the Marcellus Shale. First of all, it goes down into an area that's basically, well, we could, excuse me. Oh boy. Don't know what happened. Into an area that basically is deprived of natural resources themselves. Let me tell you some of the areas that we're going to be able to serve in a direct and indirect way. Our military bases in North Carolina, South Carolina, who's in desperate need. There was another pipeline coming out of the same shell of gas called the Atlantic Coast Pipeline that went on for years, and was finally scrubbed because the price got so exorbitant that there was no way to continue, and they could not get through the litigation that went on for years. After about $6 or $7 billion, Dominion Energy basically pulled the plug on it. They couldn't do it. So when they tell you that everything's fine or they did all this, wherever there were problems, they're sent back. If someone doesn't like this or that, it's sent back. They've gone through it 3 times. Now, when FERC goes through it, it's a pretty arduous process. It's looked into everything. And then if the courts basically say, well, look at this, and then they do that and they correct that and send it back, they find something else. Wouldn't you think they would see it all the first time if they saw any problems whatsoever that needed corrected? So, as I said, it's been thoroughly vetted. 8 years by the Obama and Trump Biden administration. 8 NEPA reviews. Anybody that's gone through any review with NEPA knows how difficult that can be. 8 times NEPA has reviewed this. 6 environmental impact. The environmental impact studies can take anywhere from 1 to 3, 4 years. 6 times it went back for that. You know, it just, so when anyone thinks that this has not been scrutinized and has not basically gone through every agency that it was required to go through and had every review possibly that could be done, would be mistaken if you see just the outline of thing. 3 rounds of permitting was approved by FERC. They approved all of them. Still wasn't good enough. Still wasn't good enough. Went to the courts, back it came. Went to the courts, back it came. So, Forest Service, Bureau of Land Management, Fish and Wildlife, they all did it 3 times. So everybody had a real good look at this one. Now we have a situation to where, if you look at Winter Storm Elliott, December 2022, the Carolinas had the highest natural gas price in the country, $50 to $60 per million BTU. $50 to $60. Normally in the Appalachian Basin, that's anywhere from $2.50 to maybe $6. That's where it stays. But because they did not have the product, the demand was so high, the people are getting gouged. You tell me an average family or a hardworking family that can afford $50 or $60 per million BTU. It's 10 times the normal in the region. So is there a need? Absolutely there's a need. Is there basically a need for pricing that stabilizes and helps people get through tough times and basically take care of their family and their home and also the job that they work at? Absolutely. So you have that. Duke Energy, well, Duke Energy says the MVP will save 4.5 million customers, $3 billion over 25 years. Duke Energy is a very large power company within North Carolina. And they're saying that we don't have that product. We need this product. They were counting on the Atlantic Coast Pipeline to give them the product. That didn't happen. Now they're counting on MVP. Who gets gouged? Everybody talks about big business and the companies and this and that. 4.5 million customers. That's who's going to pay the price. Now, when you talk about the price, let's talk about this. This line, when they started on this pipeline, there was approximate cost of $3.5 billion to build it. We're over $6.6 billion now. Who do you think is going to pay that price? It's going to be paid by the customers who need the product. We're paying $50 to $60 per million BTU when they should be paying $4 to $6 in that range there. And I guarantee you the savings is going to be tremendously supportive of their families. So, as we've talked, we've had a lot going on here, a lot of different conversation. There's a new Summit View Business Park in Franklin County in Southwest Virginia. It's struggling to attract businesses to that park that would create opportunities and jobs for the hardworking people in Southwest Virginia, just like all of West Virginia, that they cannot attract and not be able to furnish the energy that that park needs to attract the different industries that would like to come. So for economic development, just having a job, taking care of your family, living in beautiful Southwest Virginia, they don't have that opportunity now. North Carolina, Cumberland County and Fayette have lost out on $1 billion of investment because the businesses cannot afford the high price of gas. And we have an abundance of it in West Virginia and Pennsylvania and coming out of the eastern part of Ohio. Willing to share it and put it in the market to keep the prices where they should be, affordable. So the review process, as we said, has been incredibly thorough and rigorous. 8 NEPA reviews, 6 environmental impact statements, 2 environmental assessments, 3 rounds of review by the same federal agencies, FERC, Fish and Wildlife, Forest Service, and BLM, and that's a mighty lift in itself. Been before the court numerous times, 9 times to be exact, 9 times before the courts. When does it stop? When does it stop? The cost has ballooned, as I've said, doubled in price, and here we are. Now, you would think we're just trying to get this line started. It's going to be 303 miles, but guess what? 283 miles are already built. It's already laid in the ground. Now, they said there's been violations because there's sedimentation and they didn't go back and reseed. They weren't allowed to because of the court actions prohibited them from getting back on the property. It's a catch-22. They could not reclaim what they wanted to reclaim because they were taken to court, stopped it, and then they were brought to, task again for not reclaiming. If we pass this piece of legislation, within 6 months, this line will be in production. We only have 20 miles to go. That'll put 2,500 people to work. 2,500 people to work. About $40 to $50 million annually coming to the states of West Virginia and some to Virginia as it passes through. There's about 250, anywhere from $200 to $250 million that'll go to individuals who own their gas rights that are being sold and put into the line. That's every year. That's a tremendous support for the poorest parts of our country. The poorest parts of our country, the people finally are able to sell what they own, the resources, and help stabilize the prices. It'll help all people in the states that are affected. $1.2 billion in additional investment to complete the project. We have tried everything humanly possible. We really have. I just couldn't believe that we couldn't get this after what happened to the previous lines that they were trying to build to bring product to the marketplace. So there's all different people who are upset. I understand that. My good friend from Virginia, my senator friend, who we were co-governors together, and our families are very close. This doesn't affect our relationship. It doesn't affect our friendship. It doesn't affect basically us fighting for many of the same causes. But it brings a healthy discussion. Are we going to move forward in this country? Are we going to have permit reform? Are we going to be able to build the necessary transmission that it takes? I'm talking about power lines. We have the same. If anything, it takes longer for a power line. Pipelines, everything's being stopped now. It's not that they're protesting the pipe itself. It's they're protesting basically the product in the price, the gas. Now, there's a transition going on in energy throughout the country, a transition throughout the world to a certain extent. But we still cannot run our country without the gas, without the oil, and without the coal that we need for dispatchable. That means 24/7. Just gas and coal itself is over 60% of the energy that we use. In this system here, and right where we are in this beautiful capital, this is the PJM system, they call it. This is basically what distributes all the power. And it's basically all of the above. It's wind, it's solar, it's coal, it's gas. It's everything that gives the reliability that when you turn that switch on, you're going to have lights. When you turn the heat on, you're going to be warm. When you turn this air conditioner on, you're going to have comfort. If you want to cook your food, you're going to be able to do it. That's what we're able to do in America. And as that transition, there'll be a transition into new technologies that'll replace an awful lot of what we're talking about. But we're a long way away from that. And to deprive people that need this for their livelihood, to deprive them and make them pay 10 times more for a product that is abundant. It'd be different if the good Lord didn't give us the resources, but it's a shame and a sin that we don't use the resources we have to help all humankind. That's what we're talking about. And if you look at the process we've just gone through and where we are right now, what we embark on this evening, probably be here most of the night, I would assume, going through the amendments. Everybody deserves to have their say. I agree. But we've come down to the reality, and we've been here long enough understanding that this piece of legislation that we have before us has to pass. The Mountain Valley Pipeline is in that piece of legislation. It still has some review processes. We're not asking for that. We're asking that basically the things that have been done multiple times proceeds on. Proceeds on. That's all we're asking for. But with that, when you think about 3 or 4 months ago, we start talking seriously about the debt ceiling. We've got to address the debt ceiling. That's our responsibility, to address and make sure the full faith and credit of this country and the value of us having the reserve currency of the world is stable. It's stable. If we pass an amendment, or any amendment, this amendment my dear friend is going to introduce, or any amendment, we will default. It's as simple as that. We will default. Now, it'd be different if this had not gone through 8 years of scrutiny, court 9 times, been looked at any way, in every way, shape, and form. That'd be a different thing. No one's ever seen anything. We're trying to slide something through. That's not the case here. No one can accuse that of happening. So we're in a process right now of trying to move forward in this country to get the energy that we need, that we have. It was unbelievable to me when the people were thinking sometime, well, maybe we'll have Iran produce more oil. Maybe we'll have Venezuela produce more. We have it in our backyard and we can't produce it ourselves. We want someone else to do the work that we won't do for ourselves. That's ridiculous. You can't lead that way. You can't have the rest of the world looking at you as the superpower of the world and won't do for yourself because you don't like something. We found ways through innovation, not elimination, to do it better. And we can help the rest of the world, and we can help the world global climate as it is if we work together. But I can assure you, what we have right today before us is a product that's going to help an awful lot of people. 4.5 million just in one state that depends on this product to give them some relief from the highest prices, probably about the highest prices in the country except for the Northeast. So I would say there's so much at risk right now if we move forward and would pass this amendment that would go on this bill, that would have to go back to the House with us not defaulting. We cannot take that risk. So I would ask all of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, consider what we're doing. Consider basically the value that this product brings. Consider also the review that this product has gone through. And I think you'll find it more than adequate, more than comforting that basically we have a product that's going to do an awful lot of good for America, an awful lot of good for humankind in the States. And also, this will backfill and help us also at our ports to where we're sending LNG to our allies around the world. There's so many benefits from 2 billion cubic feet a day, 2 billion cubic feet a day that will go into this line, helping America be energy independent. So I encourage all of my colleagues to go vote respectfully against the amendment that will be offered to strip this out of the bill. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.